Well, today on Business Journey Unlocked, I'm joined today by Cristian Gonzalez, founder of BPMP Solutions, a Houston based firm that empowers industrial owners and sponsors to turn capital vision into measurable value. With more than 15 years of experience across engineering, operations, and project leadership, Cristian has built a reputation for strengthening projects long before construction ever begins. Cristian, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I'm going to turn it over to you to give the proper introduction that you deserve.
Well, Kevin, thank you for having me in your podcast. I really appreciate it. I don't have a short introduction like plan or anything, but yours was pretty much accurate. I would say so. Thank you for that. I don't have much else to add at the moment, but we'll come out along.
Given your deep experience in engineering and operations, what was the specific gap you observed that made you realize BPMP Solutions was the only way to solve it?
It's interesting because as many businesses, they tend to pivot and change, and mine wasn't an exception to that. When I started BPMP, if I'm 100% frank with you, um, BPMP was my way of saying I don't know what I want the business to be for. I had just come out of business school, and I wanted to do management consulting. But as I started going out in the market, a lot of the people that I know started calling me for totally different things that ended up steering me back into engineering and projects. And so BPMP originally in my head, it was like business, project management, and process, because I just couldn't make up my mind. I figure out the solutions for all those. Now, we've been in business for 4.5 years, and along the way, we kind of started finding our niche and the needs of the clients, and mm, um, some of that comes from my own experience, and some of that from the experience that I've gained in talking to these companies as client as opposed as an employee. So I would say, like, today, what we are focusing on is on these companies that have a major investment coming up, and these are probably mid-sized companies that are betting their future on perhaps a technology. And when I say technology, I'm not talking AI. We don't do software or anything like that. I say, for instance, if there are companies out there that may have the technology to create a new material, for instance, and they're about to bet the company on creating a manufacturing facility for this new material that's going out in the market. So that's a major, major investment. But what happens is that they don't know how to do it. So they go about it in many ways, often the wrong ways. And some succeed, but many of them fail, erode the value of their company to the point where their company ceases to exist because they lost all their capital in things that were not adding value into the project. So that's where we come in. We try to bridge that gap between the business and the execution of that project. So when we talk about projects, we talk about this industrial project, large scale projects for expanding or building a new manufacturing facility, for that matter.
Well, I think the hardest thing that I can personally see is coming from the fact that some people don't even know how to do the execution. Sure, they may have the capital, but they don't have the correct vision in which to apply what they have on paper to actually holistically in the business. And that's essentially what your approach is going upon, correct?
It is part of it. It's
Yeah.
certainly part of it. It's not the entire thing, but you hit on one of the major issues, because often what happens is that you got a twofold, I will say, organization, right? So you got the business guys and the technical guys, and I've seen this with actual clients where, say, I'm dealing with a startup company, probably in business for about, say, 2 years. Obviously, little to no revenue. This is all being developed to build in this company. And say they got this technology, and the business wants to create this gigantic facility, and then they only have an engineering team or a research and development team. And next thing you know, well, the big guy on the engineering team gets the lead for the project. And often it's not even an engineer, often maybe a scientist. And these people are brilliant, no question about it. I'm not judging anyone. On the contrary, I give them so much credit for even trying to take on something that's totally different, but they don't realize it's totally different until they're there, right? So they start
Mhm.
developing this project and try to do this and put it together into some concept from a lab into a manufacturing facility. And, and there's so many resources get wasted by the millions, and that's that's what we try to help them with, trying to bridge that gap, trying to make sure that the business getting what they need, is that the technical people can communicate in the business language, and the business can articulate clearly in a way that makes sense to the technical guys, because usually to the scientist or the engineer designing something, you talk to them about the internal rate of return and you need to hit it, and it means nothing to them, right? So they're like, how much you need this to cost? And they're like, well, I don't know, I can't tell you that. So all these things play into what we call value erosion, in something that could cost, let's just throwing a round number, say $100 million. What often happens is that they go with the business case, they go to the investors and say, we're going to create this plant for $100 million, and they go to the first round of development, and it's like, well, surprise, it's more often than not in the twice as much uh, twice as much the cost and the estimate. And unsurprisingly, that's like throwing sand in the gearbox, right?
Mhm.
And so a lot of companies can raise capital, get to that point where they're like, okay, now what do we do? And unfortunately cease to exist, and some of them have to be sold for pennies on the dollars. And we're here to help them avoid that by structuring this correctly from the beginning, where mistakes cost very little and are easily fixable, rather than getting them down the line where they take a lot of effort, a lot of resources, and sometimes it's to the point where it just there's nothing that can be done in extreme cases.
Well, the biggest thing that I think people have to realize is going on the standpoint of frameworks. Frameworks help you build and expand, and sometimes you have to pay certain organizations, certain entities to be able to acquire such framework, because you may not know. I mean, sure, you may be good at your company, but are you actually really good on the logistics side? It just depends on who exactly is in the structure, right? But I think at the end of the day, it really does revolve around the framework and who do you have that's backing you up. And essentially, you're the person that would be backing them up the whole way. The interesting thing is with you is, given all the different companies you are helping, they're all in different phases. And I think that's the most beautiful thing, because what may work for others doesn't work for this company. So it's more of like, I wouldn't say A B testing, but it's more from the fact that you understand, you see the pattern, and then you want to eliminate all those patterns way before they come to fruition. I think that's the biggest thing, correct?
Yes, yes, no, you now the yeah, you hit the nail in the head. Yeah, that's right. And so we do in our company, of course, we do projects. So we're very well versed in methodologies for projects, and we can structure that for other companies. Matter of fact, we do that quite often, and provide them with the methodologies to do this correctly. But as you mentioned, um, every company has different issues, and what we find is that even when you implement the right methodologies and frameworks to execute a project, and there's always what we call the wild card, and the most important factor, which is people, right? So we pride ourselves in the to be a people first company, and our approach centers on people and behaviors, because what we find is that while it's necessary to have the frameworks and the methodologies and everything correct on paper, and we put a lot of emphasis on that as well, because it's needed. But without people, it goes nowhere, right? And
Mhm.
and if people can work together, if people um, can't understand, and this is often so often the problem. Where are they going? Where are they gonna walk towards or work towards? And let me give you like a particular example. It's not uncommon to 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 be called into a company because they're having trouble, and sit with the people from different functional groups, say the meaning engineering or procurement and business, all at the same table, and be like, what are we trying to accomplish? And get a different answer from everyone. That's a major red flag right there. It tells you, okay, I can give you all the methodologies I can train all your people, but if there's no alignment and clarity, this it's useless. It's nothing. It's nothing we can do for you that will be of much value without first taking care of that. So a lot of our effort on the front end is ensuring first and foremost clarity in an alignment among the sponsors and the team that was working through the project. Once they get that, then everything else becomes so much easier.
I agree. It just essentially falls into place. And that's the biggest thing that you want to achieve because if one thing's out of line, then the whole distribution chain just goes completely out of whack. It could just take at least one person too. As simple as it is, one person can just ruin the whole thing. But that's why you want to have, so to speak, as a hive mind. Okay.
That's right.
Translating the decades of high level project experience into scalable, repeatable model is quite difficult, especially when starting out. So, given your approach, given the early challenges, what were you able to overcome in order to achieve where you are right now in BPMP Solutions?
We'll be doing that within our organization. It's always easier to preach than to do it. We do it within. I will say just making sure that overcoming the fact that we may at times have misalignment internally, and say we gotta live what we preach, and make sure that we are in alignment and that we are clear as to what do we do, and only then go after and try to teach it. Um, that now that's more of a on a BPMP internal issues, etc. Now, when it comes to like personal career that allowed me to get to this point, I've had an interesting to me, but unusual, I will say, career path, and I graduated from chemical engineering, and usually the typical career path for any chemical engineer will be like become a process engineer, and then work your way up to senior process engineer, and then you decide whether you stay technical or you go into more managerial roles, etc. But my first job out of school was not a process engineer. Was I became a and I'm going somewhere with this. Bear with me. I became a process safety engineer, which is usually a position that requires experience. Nonetheless, in this company that I worked for first, my first employer, they had so far today the finest process safety management program that I ever encountered. So I learned a lot from on my first years from very, very experienced people. And then I moved shortly to, well, briefly, I should say, to process, and immediately to projects. And ever since then, um, I've been working on projects in different capacities. And well, with one exception, this is what made it very different, was that at some point after I completed the largest project that I've worked on as an employee, talking about over $1 billion in assets, and I got what I call my dream shot. This still was relatively early in my career, to where I was 50% process engineer, but 50% business development. Weird setup like that, but it was a small sort of startup company, and that allowed me to relate like to very high senior people in companies. So I was often traveling with the company senior vice president and the CEO, and sitting across the table, there was me, 30-year-old, and the joke used to be, it's like CEO, president, and Christian, right? So um, at the time, that allowed me to realize the difference between how the business world speak and how the operations and execution world does. And there's a major gap. And as you can see, I was like this 30-year-old technical guy sitting at these tables of business. So the learning was immense in that period of time. Then um, after that, then I went back to projects and I've been doing all kinds of projects ever since. And realizing there was a need at some point after COVID, um, I lost the job after COVID, and that's when I figured this is now or never. Either I get another job. The company was downsizing, and they let me make a parenthesis there. Projects are capital expense. When companies are in slow times, there's no capital to be spent, right? So the first group that always goes is the ones in charge of spending money. The project groups goes, right. So they let go like 90% of the group that I was working with. In And at that point, it was like, time to either get another job or go on my own. And here I am 5 years later, um, growing BPMP.
You made the smart choice. Even though it was the hardest choice to make, at the end of the day, you could either went to another job and work for somebody else or made a new company and work for you and your company. And I find the choice that you made was excellent. And it is a learning curve with anything. The hardest thing, again, is just actually starting it. That's the most hardest thing to do with any business because you're thinking of the what ifs. How is this going to work? It's just do it. As long as you start it,
Yes,
nothing's perfect. Nothing in life is perfect. If you're
I agree
so
with you.
worried about perfection, what's going to happen? You're not going to get anything started.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that perfection, and you previously asked me what I had to overcome, and I say I miss that. That's one of the hardest things, and
Yeah,
I won't call myself a perfectionist, but close to that, right? As in, like, I like to deliver good work. I take pride on the work we do and the work I do personally. Um, so so naturally, when you want to do something, you want to do it right. And as an engineer too, right? You want to check, double check, triple check, but there comes a point where you got to take action, and and that's 100% with you there. And if any aspiring entrepreneur is listening, I guess that's the core message is just do it. It's no other way to put it. It's like looking at the abyss, having no parachute, jumping and trusting that everything's gonna be all right. That the wind's gonna carry. Now, that doesn't mean that it's just gonna fall on your lap, and because that's the other thing, right? There is hard work. I remember there was a time many years ago. I think it was Ashton Kutcher, the actor. Uh, I might be wrong, but I think it was him. I was watching an interview, and it stuck to my head that he said, "Often opportunity knocks on your door dressed like work," right, or something to that effect. And it's like everybody's waiting for the right time to do it, from whatever it is that you want to do, whether it's a coffee shop
exactly.
or an enterprise, whatever it is. First, it's like having a kid. There's no right time to do it. You just do it. If you're waiting for the perfect time, it's never a perfect. There's always something. So it just takes a lot of determination, and once you do it, you just gotta brace and get ready for the ride, because unless you're really lucky, it just takes a lot of work. But people often, and including myself, get awed by the entrepreneur stories that we often call as an overnight success. And what they don't show is that overnight success took 5, 10 years of hard work for it to click one day and suddenly go boom. But behind it is someone that never quit and just kept going and going and trying new things until something worked. And There's no prettier way to say it. It's just what it is.
You make an excellent point because there are some ideas and actions that would stick, and then there would be others that won't. Essentially, you just have to try, keep on trying, trying until something eventually sticks. And that's the beauty of it. You can try so much, you can pivot so much. Sure, it will be daunting in that whole process, but as long as you are disciplined, then you're going to succeed. It may not be tomorrow, it may not be next week, it may not be next month. But if you keep on showing up every single day with the discipline, the determination to succeed, eventually life will become fruitful in the seeds that you planted. And with anything in life, I'm a firm believer that like actions and certain experiences do happen for a reason. For example, given your experience where you studied with college and university, you had essentially two pathways in life, but you chose a third pathway. And that third pathway allowed you to start your own company. Given my personal experiences, I studied criminal justice in college. And now I have my own business. Now I have my own podcast where I get connected with like-minded individuals as yourself, and it's just growing and expanding from there. Sure, in my experience, I was fearful of the fact is, what if this doesn't work out? What if this? What if that? But what I did was what so many people fail to do is I just did it. And that's a common theme here. You just got to do it. You don't have to have all this analysis paralysis. At the end of the day, you just have to do it because no one else is going to do it for you. No one's going to spoon feed you or give you a
That's
golden
right.
spoon, so to speak, to then, all right, here's the kings to your kingdom. I did everything for you. No, that doesn't happen. It may happen in your best dreams, but in reality, that does not happen.
Absolutely agree with you. And I've now one thing I would add to what you said, and again for those that may be listening, is just don't misconstrue the pivoting and trying new things for not putting the required work for making something work, right? Meaning that you may have an idea and you work on it for a week, a month, and you're like, oh, it's not working out. Let me just change it. I'll say, pause for a moment and figure, is it you being impatient or is it that the idea is really not working? And there's many ways to test that, whether you ask people, get feedback, etc. But be careful because pivoting too much without putting the effort will also get you nowhere. So that's always an asterisk that I put to that. Um,
And that's
that's very important.
beautiful. That's essentially beautiful. Going back to BPMP, to maintain the high level of standard of clarity and predictability while also scaling your business. I assume that you have plans in motion. I mean, you do have your own podcast, which you started, which I hope you go into, but also from a business standpoint, it's just getting all these clients, just having the next, so to speak, wave. Like, what in your internal systems at PPMP or technological capability are you trying to implement in the next 12 to 24 months to facilitate the client acquisition pipeline?
That's interesting because right now we are in the midst of it. And so BPMP is being a very a small boutique, lean and mean firm. And right now, in this 2026 is the year that we decided that we are going to grow the company. Carefully grow, I'll put an asterisk to that, say carefully grow it. We don't want to grow for the sake of grow and just,
Mhm.
we want to grow and maintain the quality and this level of service that we provide. But it's something that we haven't done. I personally haven't done it. And so we're trying many things. And I'm applying the same advice that I said a moment ago of like not jumping ship too fast, just making sure that a thing doesn't work before you try the next one. So among those things, well, before getting into that, so up to this point, we've been fine with just word of mouth and referrals and just the network that we have is being enough to keep us going and some. But once you want to grow, then that's not enough, and that's where we are. So the podcast is one of those things that we're taking an approach of the podcast is a non-commercial podcast, but our thinking is we want to bring some of that value out for free, and a lot of these things that we mentioned are easily accessible on the internet, etc. We just want to distill it and put it out there, make it easy to digest and simple. And but that's also a marketing channel, hoping that as we grow the podcast, more companies and people know about us, and whenever they're in a situation that we can help them, hopefully they pick up the phone or get on the email and reach out, and we'll be happy to help. So that's channel one. Um, we also um, working with companies on lead generation, and that's what they do. We're still waiting for um, enough time to get results, meaning enough data to make a call on whether that's actually working or not. We just started a month or two ago doing that. Same with the email campaigns and outreach. So now we were going to start going into trade shows and get speaking engagements and all that sort of thing. Mind you, that our business is we do a service on a business to business to corporations generally, right? So it's a little different from business to customer. Um, so where here the sales cycle is a little slower or much slower, I should say, and complicated because instead of trying to sell your service to a person, even if you do that, that person has to go through procurement, their boss's boss, so it takes a little bit of time to see if a channel is actually working and performing adequately. And I don't have the data yet to say, hey, any of this is working for us solidly or not. I don't know if the good things have been out of luck or out of good work just yet. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
The beautiful idea with lead generation in your cold email campaigns, it's from the fact that you could either do it yourself, but that would take much more time, much more effort, or if you shoot all these campaigns, then you're doing all these emails and you're instead of sending out 100 emails a day, you could be sending out 500 emails. So with that aspect, sure, you may not have the data points and it's easier to A/B test in that situation because you can A/B test the 500, which will give you greater and faster data sets as opposed to just sending 100 emails a day. So look at it from that standpoint. Even though you just started, it's from the fact that if you didn't do this or if you did this by yourself, the path in which to do your own business development would be skewed in a way because you're not having the proper resources at play. At the end of the day, it's all about the resources. And I think that's
Mm.
the biggest thing that people also have to understand. You got to spend money to make money. There's a lot of people that view money as a problem and not a symptom.
I would say money, my philosophy, and not to contradict you at all, but my philosophy, just to express it, it's money is a tool, and I treat
Mm.
money as a tool, whether that's for business or personally. My personal finances, I don't love money. I love what I can do with it, and uh, and what it allows me to do. And in running a business, um, I see money as the tool that you use to leverage your time, right? And going back to your point, right? There's only 24 hours in the day, and some people are highly successful and some aren't. And the one difference is how do you use your time? So you either use time or use money to leverage your time, and you could do both, right? And a lot of times, cash if you're cash strapped, like when I started BPMP, the hardest thing was that it was one man show, and I had a contract that required me to work a lot, like full time, basically full time plus travel time plus, and on top of that, I had to grow the business. So when I was starting, we were like really, really cash strapped. It was just me with a little bit of money, just trying to get work out there, and so I had to put in the time, right? So I couldn't leverage it. But once I started getting some cash flow, then one of the most critical decisions you have to make is where you're going to put that cash, right? And I cannot say what's right or what's wrong. It all depends on what you are trying to accomplish, and that could be very well put it in your pocket, but then you're gonna be working 26 out of 24 hours a day, and if you want to get somewhere, or you can put it back into business, and the critical decision is where within the business are you going to put it? What's the high value place where you're going to place that? And I will say leveraging your time is priceless, because time is the one thing that we cannot get back, right? We
Exactly.
all have we all have the same amount of time, and none of us can get any of it back. So I'll say, if you're looking for high leverage, just leverage your time with money. That's, to me, that's what I do. Now that said, uh, you can misfire every now and then, and I did that. Like I mentioned, I guess I don't know if I mentioned to you on a prep call, but when I first tried to start the podcast, I hired the wrong company, and the whole point of hiring a company was to leverage my time, so they could do all the production, all the search for guests, etc., while I focus on BPMP. And that misfired badly. I was plenty of resources that I drained there for zero gain. But you live and learn, and now that hopefully won't happen again. I got better at selecting partner companies. So uh, I get that. That's my story on that end.
You brought up an interesting point going on time management. And I just want to preface saying that even if you're busy, that might not mean you're productive. You have to figure out what the most promising attributes are to the business, and then figure out where your time should be allocated the most. What exact value and impact would you be doing with this action? Like, how is it essentially moving the needle? Because people could be focusing
100%.
on other items in the business that may not essentially move that needle, but because they're busy, they believe that they are moving that needle, but it's not that case at all. If you actually allocate the proper time and understand, because in my business, for example, I was busy all the time, but then I took a step back and then I really thought to myself, how is this improving my business? How is it essentially moving my needle? And then I took a step back further and I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going to focus less on this, put more focus on this. It's just going back to the time management. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Because as you said, you don't get any time back. That's one thing money cannot buy. Money cannot buy time. And if you allocate your time and resources to, I wouldn't say low level actions, but actions that won't move the business, you're not going to go anywhere. You're just going to be stuck. You're going to be stagnant. Then you're going to start thinking, oh, it's not even worth doing this. And you're just going to stop. But that's going back to the discipline. That's going back to the determination. Once you understand what exactly needs to be done within your business, it's going to grow and flourish, but it does take time. And that's the hardest pill to swallow, but it does take time.
And you're absolutely right. And I'll admit, I used to suck at that. I used to despise time management back when I was a lot younger. And I remember when I was working for one of my jobs was with a Fortune 200 company, and I was on a special training program for some of their employees, and they used to send us to these trainings. And one of them was a whole week of, I think it was about 3 days of just time management. And I remember myself rolling the eyes like, oh my God, like, how boring. But then, once as you get older and you start realizing that your time is getting shorter and more valuable, then it starts making a lot of sense. So hopefully, if you're listening to these and you're young, you pick up on that, and realize the younger and the earlier you manage your time better, the better off you're going to be. No waiting until you're in your 40s to realize, hey, I got to do something about this, which was almost my case. I started doing it about when I was 35-ish or so. Um, so where I wanted to get to is that, yes, it's gonna suck. Sometimes it's gonna suck, because it, what I found, at least with myself, I don't. I would imagine some people feel identified with this, but when you're doing busy work, it feels good, because you are busy, and now you're fooling yourself into thinking you're making progress, like you mentioned. Um, but you're not, and it's not until you realize that you wasted a whole day just in busy things that get you nowhere, then it sucks even more because you have the feeling that what you didn't accomplish anything. And so to that point, what I guess what I'm trying to say is, back to I don't know if you read Stephen Covey. As much as I avoided it, when I finally got around reading it, I started applying it. You got the four quadrants, the urgent, important things that you got to do. Like you hit your head, you're bleeding, you have to go to the hospital. You cannot postpone that for a meeting, right? So urgent, important things have to be done when they have to be done. Period. Then you got quadrant two of important, not urgent things. So those are the ones that move the ball forward, that move the needle, the ones that you were talking about, Kevin, that you should be spending most of your time on. But those are the things that you schedule. And I didn't used to do that, and my life improved so much when I did that. You'll start realizing how much free time you have, because if you take those big rocks and take care of them. Say, for instance, you say, I got to talk to this important company, in my case, right? Um, or prepare for this meeting that's going to get me a contract. So that's a block of important, not urgent time. What you want to do is avoid it becoming urgent, because once it becomes urgent, it controls your time. You're not controlling it, and then you're at its mercy, for lack of a better term. So those things you schedule and take care of them first. Get them out of the way, and suddenly you have so much time. Right now, you can take care of the things that are um, urgent but not important. Those are the errands. I gotta go, and whatever, to the supermarket. I gotta go do this, do that. Take the kid here. Or those are important. They're just not urgent. Um, Sorry, backwards. Might be urgent sometimes, but I'm getting confused. But you follow me there. Then now,
Yeah.
what were you? Yeah. So those are the to dos. Like, people that do like 200 to dos that get them nowhere. That's the quadrant that you want to do after the things that are moved the needle. And then you have the fourth quadrant of not important, not urgent, like watching Netflix. We all need that time, which is the other. Some of the people that speak time management ignore that time, and it's my philosophy that we all need some layback rest time. What you want to make sure is that you don't spend half your life doing that, because you won't get anywhere. But should you allow yourself to watch Netflix every now and then, or take some rest for yourself? Absolutely. I mean, otherwise, why are you putting all this work for? For money? And I can tell you that, well, again, for me, money is just a tool. It does nothing for me. Sitting in the bank there, other than just looking at a number, it does nothing. So if you can't take quality time for you, for your loved ones, then what are you doing all this for? My take on that.
The way I view money, it's essentially a byproduct. If you enjoy what you do, money will come. So many people are fixated on the monetary value, but then it takes away from the fact is why they actually started the business. At the end of the day, people connect with people. It's all about the relationships.
Mm.
People want to partner with you because of who you are as a person, not from the fact in what you offer. Some areas, I will say it's a matter of fact of what you do offer, so I'm kind of contradicting myself there, but essentially most of the time people connect with people, and that's one of the big things.
I will argue that you're not necessarily contradicting yourself, because I'm a big believer of what you said as well. But I'll take it a notch further, right? So, um, so when you offer something, right? Of course, it needs to add value, right? But if I have a choice, I will go with the one that I like the most, right? So that's why you often, like, for instance, if you have two restaurants. Uh, I like to eat in restaurants quite a bit. I enjoy food. I might not be fat yet, but I do enjoy food a lot. And oftentimes I frequent a restaurant that may not be the best at the food, right? So I do need the food. We all need food, right? I do need to eat, but I don't necessarily keep going to the one with the best food, because in some cases, the other restaurant has a much better service that makes me feel better as in the overall experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm buying what they have to offer. They have to be a match. Otherwise, what is this charity, right? I'm not buying something that you don't need unless you just want to help someone. Uh, but that said, that aside, yes, usually go with the one that you feel the most comfortable with. Yeah. So that's to your point, right? So anyway,
The biggest pill that I personally had to swallow is just going back in the time management. I didn't put a lot of time and investment into myself. I was investing a lot into the company, and that took time away from spending time with family, having downtime for myself. But as you grow and adjust, you learn that you can put stuff on the back burner if it helps you out in your life. For me, the one area that helps me is going to the gym. Before, when I first started, for maybe about 2 months, I wasn't going to the gym, and then my health started to deteriorate in a way I wasn't really as happy as I was going into this. But once I took a step back and understood exactly what was the reason for this, that's when I said, okay, I'm just going to take a step back from doing the business, going to maybe take about an hour, hour and a half at most to then go to the gym, because at the end of the day, that helps me as a person, that helps my health, my mental health, physical health, and it just helps with everything else in life. So when people understand that, sure, you can take some time off to get adjusted, because with starting the business, with starting anything in general, it's all an adjustment period. Okay. But it's from the fact is, if you just stop your routine and then just have this, you're not going to be happy. Eventually, you'll come to a point where
that's right.
you're resenting it. And
That's right.
then you have to think from the fact, why did I start this again? And then that's how some people fail, because they forget the tried and true, they forget the method, they forget the routine they had in place, and they just go fixate. I'm not saying you can't go all in. That's not what I'm saying. It
Sometimes
just
you just have to do it for a period of time. But I think what you're
exactly.
going at, which if you go into this point, I 100% agree. It is that you got to do what you got to do, but you
Hmm.
also have to make time for yourself. At the end of the day, if you're not happy, if you're not feeling good, your work quality is going to suffer, which in turn,
Exactly.
your business is going to suffer. So you have to make a point of getting yourself in your best self so that you can give that to others, offer that to others, if that makes sense in this context.
That makes perfect sense. And that's how I view the business as well. Like, if I'm not essentially in the right space, then I won't really facilitate my time on stuff that needs myself to be level headed. And
Yes.
emotions dictate how you think logically, and it could skew it in a way where it could harm something. So it's just
It's like
taking a step
never
back.
make decisions when you're extremely happy or angry. Just takes and goes both ways. So everybody thinks like being great, happy is awesome. But I tell you one thing, and this is one dirty little secret that I'm just not gonna make a secret here by telling everyone, is that the right moment to ask for a contract extension to a client is not at the end of your contract. It's right after your big win within that contract, right? At the moment that they are the happiest, right? Because they are the happiest, they're more likely to say yes. So on the flip side, if you're the one getting that contract extension request after a big win, not that you don't grant it, maybe it's well deserved. What I'm saying is that take a moment to get out of the high, back to normal, and then make the decision with a clear conscience, because it goes both ways. You don't want to make a decision when you're angry. That's when we make stupid decisions that we end up regretting. But it also happens when we're overly excited. That's all I'm trying to say.
You make an excellent point, and I do appreciate those insights. When you reflect on everything you've done so far with BPMP Solutions, what specific long lasting effect do you hope to create, not only within your community, but especially within yourself, your organization, and with the clients you serve?
Well, that's a pretty deep question. and Look, if I'm frank, I that changes quite often in my head. And that's one of my issues, trying to settle on something in so many things. But if I had to pick something right now off the spot, I would say um, I just want to be part of my client's success, and in a non, and I don't mean that in a selfish way, but it feels good when you help someone and they succeed, right? And seeing a company that like I have clients that are, again, going back to the beginning of our conversation, that are betting their company, like their investors, the board, their executives are betting the future of the company in this one technology to grow, and seeing them going possibly the wrong direction and coming in and helping them get it right and succeed, it feels great. It and it at a personal level, it feels great. So that's the selfish part, right? It's just about feeling good about doing something good for your community. Going beyond that into actual pencil numbers, etc., is great, because now, even though you might not be, or I, in my case, not be in the newspaper for it, uh, having one of those clients actually build a manufacturing facility, create jobs in the community, helps people's lives, as they get paid better. If you like, if you have a project and the project comes in excellent, like on time, on budget, aligned with the business uh, plan, etc., and even better, there's more opportunity for everybody to be better off, right? The investors, the employees, the executives, everybody. So to me, that's very gratifying.
I don't find that being selfish in any way. It just shows you that the labor became fruitful. Essentially, it's just growing your seeds. And you came into the company and they saw the value and they put the actions and deliverables and the mindsets that you speak on to their business. And then that helped them grow and gain more value in their business. There's nothing to be selfish. I'd be amazed. I'd be ecstatic, right? I wouldn't think that would be selfish in any way. It's just going from the fact that you're there for a reason and you're there to facilitate said reason to help grow value, grow their business to a point where they couldn't do it themselves or without external help. And that's the biggest takeaway with anything. Before we wrap up here, what is one critical habit or belief that you carry day to day, either through your personal or your professional development, that has allowed you to succeed in where you are in life right now?
Wow. Okay. So I can only pick one.
You can pick more than
um,
one. I'm just, if
no,
there's one, if there's a
it's all
couple
right.
that come to mind, you can talk about them.
You know, I'll say every morning I do try to write one or two affirmations back, that just try to get self-centered. But I will say there's two of them that are related, that I carry always, and one of them is the difference between um hold on, because I lost that, is that the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra. You know, it's everybody does the work, nobody goes the extra mile, and it's just the extra mile. It's just a little bit extra. Now that little bit usually takes a lot of work, just to frame that in a way for context, and why no one, or very not everyone goes that extra mile, is because if you go back to the Pareto principle, uh, 80% of the results is achieved with 20% of the effort. It's That's a very well known statistic and proven. And so how much effort does it take to achieve that other 20, right? And that's 80. That's quite a bit, right? That's why you see, even in the NBA, for instance, I'm from the 90s, like Jordan time, like Michael Jordan, etc. And so you have very good players, like everyone on the NBA is like top elite basketball player. But then among those, you have only a few that go far and beyond the Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and all these. But you see, if you look into the work they put in, it was substantially above everyone else to be that 1% extra. But that 1% extra, that little extra, got them to where they were many, many times over as everybody else. So that's something that I carry with me. Now I don't think I'm special in any way. I just use that to remind myself of being better. And the other one, which is related, is being 1%. Try to be 1% better every day. 1% is nothing, but the compounding effect, if you do the math, is outstanding. So 1% better every day is, and I forget off the top of my head how many times, but it's many zeros at the end of the year. Better just by trying to be 1% better every day. So those two, I'll say, I carry me everywhere.
So many people always are looking into the future, but a lot of people fail to be present. Where you were 2 months ago and where you are today, 2 months pre you or past you would be ecstatic where you are today. But it's just, again, people just forget that aspect. But I do agree about that compounding effect. If you just do one small thing different each day, it will compound. People are so evolved in the effect that they have to do so much at once, but it's just doing one little thing. One little step action would be more beneficial instead of doing it all at once. Some people can't do that.
And I think it was Elon Musk, the one who said that, I hope I get this right, but said that people underestimate so they overestimate what they can do in a day, but underestimate what they can achieve in a decade, right? And
Mm.
so, um, not trying to contradict what you said at all, but it's another way of looking at it and the focus, right? So, because you don't get through the decade thinking, the future, the future, the future. You still have to be the present, right? But keeping the big picture in mind, your North Star, or however you want to call it, um, because you got to know where you're going. And that little bit, and I guess this is going back to the compound effect. It's is that little bit that you do on the same path in the same direction, not random but intentionally. Uh, that's what people forget, that in a decade, that's like how people like Bezos, Elon Musk got where they are by, doing it towards that one goal, and it didn't happen overnight. That's where the quote comes, like overestimating what you can achieve in a day versus a decade. It's just focus on getting it right today, be a little better tomorrow, a little better tomorrow, a little better the next day, and over a decade you'll be amazed where you be. Anyway, yeah.
You couldn't have said that any better. For anyone who's listening or watching this, what's the best place for them to reach out to you and to the company?
Yeah, no, that's great. Sure. They can, our website, bpmpsolutions.com. Let me repeat that, is B as in Bravo, Papa, Mary, Papa, bpmpsolutions.com. There's a contact form there, and that's the easiest way to reach. Otherwise, you can just email at info@bpmpsolutions.com, and one of us will reach back out. Be happy to talk and hear you out.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Christian. I do appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
No, thanks for inviting me. I really enjoyed this. It's
My
anytime.
pleasure.
Okay, nice talking with you.